issues to talk about, but we also know that under consultations, the Uganda Private Teachers Union was also consulted over the same to present their own opinions over this bill. And today we want to see whether this bill fully addresses the issues of teachers as a general profession, or it is a bill that is targeting a particular category of teachers. With us is Mr. Mwamula Juma, who is the General Secretary of the Uganda Private Teachers Union. You're most welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, my brother.
It's a pleasure having you this morning.
Good morning to our viewers out there. Indeed. And thank you for this opportunity. Again, allow me to say congratulations to the teacher. It's just 2 days since we had our World Teachers Day commemoration, and we are almost still within the week of recognizing your teacher. So I want to say thank you for the work that you're doing out there amidst the situations.
We had some teachers saying that government yet fuzz with the fact that that day is even happening on a weekend.
I think that really realistically was beyond what the government could do. But somehow, even if it came on a weekday, I think we have started getting some relative recognition that teachers are given time off to really go and be part of their day. So we should be thankful for that.
Okay. Welcome back from the parliament.
Thank you so much, my brother.
Well, yes. I want us to start from there. You were presenting some of the opinions, especially pertaining the Teachers Bill of 2024, and we start from there. To digest some of these opinions that you presented.
First is that since 2019, there was a development of a national teacher policy.
Yes.
Something that is supposed to give a legal framework onto how teachers should be managed, should be regulated, and all that stuff. A policy is such a guiding document that is a little bit big and is always actualized by an act or by a law of parliament. So since then, I think Minister of Education has been in efforts of putting down suggestions that should translate into a law that would regulate teachers. Part of the justification for their law proposed is that until now, we see cases of minimum regulation of the teaching profession, to the extent that we even have some people who are not necessarily teachers into the service of teaching, and therefore sometimes acting a little bit out of what is expected of a teacher. They say the level of professionalism has also gone down, that even when you find a real qualified person, sometimes the conduct are really not matching to what is expected of a profession. They say there are high senses of absenteeism, and I think this is so common, especially to our colleagues working with public schools. In the government schools, you find a head teacher hanging his coat, and for 2 weeks is not there. It is only the coat that is in office. But the coat is in office. Yes. So those are real issues. And indeed, on the basis of that, I think it is important really for us to have a focus on how do we make the teaching a better profession. How do we really make a teacher the best that he or she can be? The justification is somehow we agree onto that. But the details of the proposal are a little bit alarming. One are, of course, it starts with those defects, and it goes forward to give objectives which seem to patch some of those some of those defects. But I think one very sounding observation from the start is that the proposal seems to be a little bit blind of the fact of what is happening in the teaching space. Because since the liberalization of education sector today, we have both teachers who are working with the government schools, and we have those who are working with private institutions. And the situation under which those two categories work is very much distinct from each other. It's very much different from each other. Just very recently here, we were having a conversation of one set of teachers who are working at juniors junior primary school.
Yes.
And after being defaulted of their pay for a long period of time, when they raised their voices, they were rewarded in punches.
Yes.
Those are the situations of some of the colleagues, especially in private school. So this bill is putting forth proposals, but it is not so keen on the basics of somebody working under such a situation. Some of the proposals that are being mooted is that a teacher across from pre-primary, which we commonly call nursery, to secondary level would be expected to have a degree, a bachelor's degree in education. First of all, a degree, but that degree should be in education. That means all other teachers who have been graduate, but maybe with Bachelor of Arts in Arts, and then they do a postgraduate diploma, will also be disqualified because they don't have a degree in education. So that is one thing. The other is that when you just look at that one point and relate it to such a teacher like that one who was being given a reward of punch, you start to ask, if this person does not already have a degree, how possible is it that he or she will immediately mobilize to acquire one? Because there is no degree here in Uganda that is for free, and even if they gave you free sponsorship, you would still need costs in terms of your administrative spendings. So such a person whose salary is 80,000 shillings, and that 80,000 shillings go for a whole year, a whole term, 2 terms without pay, how possible is it that he or she can mobilize to go attend classes and therefore be able to acquire a degree? Those are very fundamental questions, and for us, our view is that those should be the beginning issues to start with. Build a firm ground such that on the basis of that firm ground, we then can go forward to do the regulations. The other thing is that a teacher would be required to do registration. That is a very good thing, and indeed up to now has been happening. When somebody qualifies, you go, there is a department in the Ministry of Education where you previously people were submitting hard copies of their credentials. Today, you submit online soft copies. You scan and you upload, and automatically the system works it out. There is a system called the Education Information Management System, EMIS, that does that. So
do you get the certificate also online?
You also, that EMIS, after submitting all your details, there is a review process. Then later on, you get the certificate. Yes, you get a certificate through still the same system. They send you an email with an attachment of your certificate, which is a very efficient thing. They are saying that that system is actually not a system, but the process of registration is going to be put under an established council called the National Teacher Council. They are proposing the formation of an organ called the National Teacher Council, and that it would be responsible for doing all that. But the most touching aspects is that in the process of registration, the council may choose to give you competence test. You have passed your requirements from the university where you went and you qualified as a teacher. Now you want to be enrolled into the register of teachers in Uganda. And that authority, which is not even an examination body, but just an authority that is doing registration, requires that before they enroll you, they first subject you to a test.
What is
to prove that indeed you are competent. That is an illustration that is exactly the same as what was happening in Nakaseke district. If you recall, the era was it of Com or something,
the previous something. P7 results.
Yes, where a chairperson was requiring all teachers in his district to go before him and answer a certain examination. I don't know what more then he would do after that. But in our view, such is very unnecessary.
The question is, what are the basics, or what do they base on to gauge the competence?
Those are subjective suggestions. And this is why we are saying, really, the proposal in there is very unnecessary. They are subjective because, first of all, the bill proposes a formation of a National Teacher Council, and among other functions is to do that registration. And they say in the process of registration, they would need you to be they may need you to be subjected to a competence test, and maybe the council would administer it or hire any authority that would administer it. But we are saying the council is not an accredited examination body to do that. That is the issue number one. But even if it was, a person has already gone through a rigorous training of a university that was accredited by this government. That accreditation has a very close connotation with the ministry that is proposing this same thing. Except if the ministry make announcement that now on we do not have trust of the various universities we have accredited in Uganda, and whatever they are producing, we still do not trust. We need to do our own internal competence reviews and so on. And the other thing is that we are seeing quite a number of other public servants, and we have not seen these elements of pretests before you enrolled. Exactly. When somebody passes as a journalist, if there was any registration role for journalists, I want to assume that it is on presentation of your certified copies as a person who was trained as a journalist. But now these are requirements that are being put on a teacher. The other thing, that is at a process of registration. When you are, by the way, I even jumped because their process is that you go and attain a degree in a university. When you finish to do, normally universities have a program that is called school program, school practice. Yes. Towards the end, normally the last 2 years, you are sent to a school to go and do what you would otherwise term as field work, practical hands-on. You have been studying as a teacher, now go and we say how you do conduct the teaching in a class. That is what is embedded in a school program. But besides that, this bill proposes a call for internship. And it even make it much more complicated, because in their view is that internship, every teacher out there will make an application to Ministry of Education. And the Minister of Education shall once in a year place and post the teachers. So when 1,000 of us make application, maybe the minister will either choose 1,000 of us all, or maybe a few of us, and assign them to different schools. We still have the big question of, if I am assigned to a school, St. Ruanga in Kalangala, would I be facilitated by the same minister to be able to cope up with the situations in Kalangala? Would I therefore have a stipend? Would I have a support? Would I have a pay to enable me? But we are seeing the cries that are happening with intern doctors here in Uganda, with the continuous explanation that the government does not have salaries to pay them.
And what has resulted, was saying that you're recruiting, you're admitting a lot of students, yet the government cannot meet the internship capacity. And there are even much more teachers in training than there are doctors in Uganda. So you want a guarantee. Does the Minister of Education really has assurance that all the teachers who shall come out per year, it has the ability to accommodate them in their program of internship, placing them wherever they are, and therefore be able to give them some support? Because what has been happening previously is that in school practice, a teacher picks onto a school of his or her convenience. Either such a school which is near your college where you're training from, or which is near your home of stay. And all that you do is to report those details to your lecturer. Then the lecturer, on sponsorship of the university, will come to you. Now here, you are making an application to ministry in Kampala, and the ministry chooses to place you in a school in Amudat. So what happens? Can we have a guarantee to that? Clearly, even if they gave us an assurance, I have a deep conviction that that guarantee is not there. It is not possible. And therefore, when we are moving forward, we must move forward very cautiously before we actually put hard life. Because we will have teachers who finish with universities but cannot graduate, cannot really qualify because they have not been able to complete their internship. Now, when you finish internship, you go to the registration. Registration, I've already told you. So has the time of internship been stipulated as well?
Yes, it is expected that internship will take 1 year. And somebody may fail that internship. And therefore, when the scores you get from internship are not satisfying, you redo it for another 1 year. I think effectively is that we are by default making a teacher degree course to 4 years. From the 3 in universities and now to this other 1 extra year in internship. Then when you finish internship, you go into the registration where I have already told you the hurdle of maybe a pre-test. After registration, still at that stage, you are not allowed to appear in any class in Uganda. So there is a proposal that you must be licensed. Education Act that is existing today speaks about licensing of teachers, but the context of licensing of teachers was in regard to those people who had the competence to teach but were not necessarily qualified teachers. So they would be given a provisional allowance in terms of a license to teach. Now this is not what they are talking about because that situation has been phased out. Now you only have to teach when you actually qualify as a teacher. But they are asking that for you, after attaining your teaching credential, after attaining the registration certificate and you are appearing on the teacher role, is that you will have a license to operate in Uganda as a teacher.
So
and that license is upon payment of a prescribed fee. Clearly is that the bill is proposing a tax on this teacher who earns 80,000 shillings, is proposing a tax on this teacher who works with Joyous and when he asks for his salary is given back kicks. That is what this bill is talking about. And we look at all these things as being very unreasonable, being insensitive to the dynamics in the teaching, because true, we have teachers in government schools who do not have those problems. But we have a vast number of teachers, almost 150,000 in private school, who are actually buried into the difficulties of working without appointment instruments, working with very, very, very miserable pay levels. People are working for 100,000 shillings, extreme exploitations. And sometimes even this extreme exploitation is defaulted. Somebody is promised 100,000 shillings per month. But even then, it is not paid for 1, 2 months, 2 terms, a whole year. And when you rise up, you are beaten. These things are happening. So in our view, because that group and the category of people are very many, we think we need to consider first things first. And the first would be to guarantee that really we have put the minimum in terms of a welfare of a teacher. Make that person able to really have something substantive that he can even go forward to acquire advanced qualifications. The other thing is that there is no evidence that we actually need equal levels of qualification for varying levels of education.
I think that is now something that sparks the debate because you realize now, for example, if we start with the early childhood development, the ECD. So someone in the ECD, someone primary, someone in HSC, they all need the same minimum qualification.
This is what seems to be proposed. This is what is being proposed. And we are saying it's just very unnecessary. First of all, even if we compare it to the regional observations, for example, in Kenya, it is not a requirement. And yet, right now, we are into the move of regional integration. Such that if somebody qualifies in Uganda and maybe finds his life in Kenya, he should be able to be quickly absorbed. The minimum of that side for primary, the diploma holder does. Now, for us here, we are making a necessary teacher overqualified that even if he went that side, he possibly may not even have a placement because he's overly qualified for the role. So these are some of the issues, and our view is maintained that we do not need a unilateral qualification level. We need varying qualifications based on levels. Somebody for nursery would need more skills in ECD handle skills than the degrees that we are speaking about.
Well, we are taking a short commercial break, but of course of recent there was a report that the rate of teachers resigning before age is also high. Should we assume that these are some of the things that are threatening teachers because they can't wait to stand some of these things? Well, we are coming back shortly after the commercial break.
This is Church of Uganda Family TV, enriching lives. This is Church of Uganda Family TV, enriching lives.
Welcome back from that break. This is Issues at Hand. We are looking at some of the gaps that are still existing, especially in the proposed teachers bill of 2024. Of course, someone would ask that we are not addressing the real problem in the teaching profession currently. For example, the minimum wage and such imbalances that exist in the profession, other than these other ties that are being created. But this is open to discussion since the bill is still under scrutiny. And so before the break, we are looking at the imbalances. Now I look at this private teacher who is trying to find ends meet. So they teach in school A and school B and school C, yes, as a way of trying to gather resources and maybe support their family. Is there any provision in this bill that prohibits this? Because earlier when they were initiating the registration of teachers, I think on the, is it the MS still, where they were requiring that every school presents their teachers. And the idea was that they want to track the teachers who teach in both private and government institutions. And I don't know how far they went with this and how many were found teaching in both in two schools or what. But I mean, what is the whole instance of all this?
First is that there are really so many teachers who are moving up and down, are teaching in different schools, especially in private sector. And even in the government, many of those people on government payroll are ending up serving in private schools. And the reason is so clear. A graduate teacher, including a head teacher of a government school today, when you look at his take away at the end of a month, is really very small. I think their salary is at around 850,000 shillings a month. If he's a teacher, he has about 1.5 million shillings, head teacher.
Wow.
But is working in a space where his counterpart who is teaching science subjects is earning 4 million shillings. That in itself creates a natural sense of discomfort and uncontent that this person will always want to look around for other ways to try to catch up with life. So what we are seeing are those head teachers who hang their coats on chairs, go into their farms, try to do some other things. Or those teachers who use the advantage of their administrative role, I think maybe to better or to improve their other private engagements. Maybe somebody has gotten government capitation grant and other than committing it, what it should really do is really utilizing it for other things. That is what we are clearly promoting. For those who do not have administrative roles and therefore advantage of those resources, their recourse has been one, at a retirement, like you earlier alluded. And or multitasking in different schools. So we'll run from a certain government school and make sure is there strictly for the time of the teaching moments is supposed to appear in class, and immediately after that runs to another school to be able to have some money. And this is likely to continue because the core has not been addressed. And that is why we are seeing that the core really is the question of welfare. Welfare in terms of doing a balanced pay for people doing equal work. As we speak now, in the secondary levels, there is confusion where people have same qualifications, maybe same workloads, but paid very differently and sharply differently. Like I am saying, somebody is teaching because he's teaching English language. His pay is way low by maybe half as compared to his counterpart who is teaching physics. Same workload, same time of appearance, same qualifications, but then different pay. That thing causes demotivation, and this person will always be on a rush to go and look for other things. So we need a harmonization at that level. The other thing, addressing the question of absenteeism and the actual attrition, where people just eventually quit, is that we must also make a look at these other categories. The primary school teacher who is earning 450,000 shillings today, and you expect that that person should be in school from Monday early morning to Friday late evening. That is very unreasonable, and you are even requiring that that person should have a degree. That is very unnecessary. So make a clear enhancement. And by the way, we do not even need a regulation on level of qualification. All we need is a seal on level of motivation based on academic qualification. Okay. For example, if you say that anybody teaching in primary school, primary level, at certificate level will have this salary as the top, and somebody with a degree will have this in government service, somebody with a degree will have this as his pay, salary, I want to tell you that people will naturally rush back to schools to attain such levels that can give them advantage to have a better earning. We do not need a regulation to force. We need a motivation to attract, and that will work very effectively. Yes.
Well, I still see another thing in this, but as you, Uganda Private Teachers Union,
yes,
what are you putting on table contrary to this? Because we have seen now all these irregularities that are being fronted, and what should be your cry? What are you telling the government, especially considering also the benefit of private teachers who are being exploited in private schools?
In our last appearance at Parliament, we tried to highlight all these seeming gaps and defaults in the proposals that are being mooted. And at that time, we were even asking that this bill be withdrawn. At one moment, some of the minds, some of the parliamentarians were thinking that that is an over desire from our side. We are glad tomorrow we'll do a reappearance still to discuss about the same thing, and our federation, National Organization of Trade Unions, NOTU, and as Uganda Private Teachers Union will have central participation in that moment. So we are going to do a refined presentation, but overall is that there is no one big legislation that is going to act on a teacher, especially when it is more of an imposition to the extent that the teachers cannot even afford to do it. Even when they have the will, they cannot afford. That thing will remain in the papers, and it is very unnecessary for us to legislate acts that will really not be implemented. So we are desiring that we should start with the basics, and the basics here is deliberate promotion of teachers' welfare across the board, because we want to address issues of people who are running away from the profession. We want to address issues of people who are absenting themselves, choosing to go on border stages because they must fend for their families. So we must address the question of a teacher. Yes, to make sure that when somebody commits his efforts to go and serve, there is a commensurate pay as a result of his efforts, and that commensurate pay is reasonable to enable that teacher provide for his house, enable that teacher to sustain his children in the school. I don't think there are a substantive number of teachers, for example, who can afford to take 2-3 children in Seta High School. Because the tuition there is about 2, 3, 4 millions. I don't know how much it is because I can't afford, and I've never asked. So that is the thing, and therefore, let's make this teacher believe that whatever I am giving in is really paying back for me to be able to live a life that is expected of me. Then we shall have them settled. The other thing is that Ministry of Education, before they now officially brought this bill, tried to conduct some meetings, which maybe they are calling consultative meetings. I remember participating in one meeting that was at Chibuli PTC, and we were talking about these things. Now, it is very risky that when you conduct such meetings, you only conduct them for taking attendance rolls of people, and then you claim that you have consulted. Ideally, the consultation must be in view that when people make submissions, you take a note of their submissions and respect the opinions very strongly. We are not seeing that. Therefore, we can go slow on some of these proposals and instead prioritize and intensify doing effective consultations with stakeholders. Stakeholders in terms of the teachers, stakeholders in terms of the school founding bodies. I want to tell you that by default, these proposals are asking that every school in Uganda must employ degree holding teachers. And now, if you want to understand its implication, you leave these Kampala parents, the Seta High School, and those high-end private schools. Look at that private school in your rural area. How many of such schools, in relation to the school fees you are paying at that school, how many of such schools shall be able to employ even if 5 degree holding teachers to teach in nursery? And if they have gotten them, how much are they going to pay them such that those people are effective? Will they continue to pay them the salary of 200,000 shillings when they are holding degree? Maybe the list then would be 800. Will such schools be able to sustain, or we are by default asking or proposing that such schools should then collapse? And if they collapse, what does it mean to your child in Mitiana? What does it mean to that child in Amudat going under such arrangement of schools? Has the government made the commitment that now on going forward, we are going to have a robust effort to improve infrastructure of schools across the country, and therefore with or without role of private schools, we'll really manage this thing on our own? So if those fundamental questions are not addressed, I think it is important that we go low. Otherwise, we are going to collapse, first starting with frustrating teachers, and eventually we shall collapse the private the private schools, and that shall eventually kill up or eat up the government schools. And eventually the entire education system in the country will die off. And that would mean a doomed future for Uganda. So we do not need to leave it as an agenda of that person putting on a wireless shoe, and therefore you say, it is for teachers. It is for the nation. Because it speaks to you as a parent in Nagaseke district. It speaks to you as a younger child, as a student of 15 years who is now going into secondary school. That secondary school, if all teachers there require that they have to have the possessions that are asked here, then also those teachers will demand for something higher. And whatever they are demanding for will translate into the fees that you must pay. So what is your affordability level? What has been done onto the capacities of Ugandans to afford fees of 1 million shillings across the country? Those are very vital reflections that we must make, and therefore our call is that some of the proposals in this bill be halted. Actually, other than rushing it, we can start by improving the already existing laws that speak about regulation of education sector. Like, for example, the Education Act 2018 can be reviewed to accommodate or to provide for some of the proposals that are being talked about here. In here, there is even a proposal that is speaking about how lecturers who train teachers must be recruited in universities. It is also speaking about how a person should be recruited to go and do a teacher course. Some of those things are even out of scope here, really. Consider reviewing the University and Other Tertiary Institutions Act to provide for such. It does not have to be a question of really this new bill, because there is already a law that looks at how universities operate, how tertiary institutions are. Go into that law, do the necessary adjustments there. So that would give us time first of all, to do a deeper reflection on this debate, but also for the Minister of Education to take a reconsideration and do meaningful consultations. Not those meetings where they are calling people to inform them of what they have moved, and even if people make suggestions, they throw the suggestions right into the holes and proceed with whatever they are putting forward.
Okay. Now there is, I think it also came with the teachers' policy of 2019, where they proposed that every teacher should have a degree, but also this also saw PTCs phasing out.
Yes.
Especially those that were not core, and they said the core PTCs will
now turn into
will first teach the teachers, especially the primary teachers who had I think certificate. So they trained them to get diplomas, and then as they go to the university. But also it saw very many NTCs, National Teachers Colleges, closing. I think they're turning into Uganda teacher unity campuses. So all this. But now the issue is, we've always thought that a child after senior 4 can go and start with a certificate in primary education, and then they go on upgrading and upgrading. But now, if you have this as the minimum requirement, it means that a student has to go up to senior 6. I wonder whether there is any student who can opt for primary education
or nursery education
after senior 6. Now, isn't this going to cause some imbalance in the education?
These are the observations we are making. That let's make a deep reflections. Truly, practically, if you went to any class today, you do that investigative journalism, go to any school around you and ask, hey children, hey students, what do you wish to be in the future? It is rare that you will get responses of people who have original intention to be teachers from the onset. People are there maybe as a result of push. But that is not because it is not a noble profession. It is because the circumstance really has made teaching an desirable professional practice. And we need to change that. Like you have just explained, we are eventually going to see a very serious shortage of teachers at nursery level, and it has already started happening, because as we are speaking now, teacher training colleges and national teacher training colleges are not admitting people for certificate and diploma programs. And yet the teachers who are earlier qualified, some of them already even did not go into teaching because they thought it was a mockery kind of engagement. So they went into business. Many of them have even went for early retirement, like you already alluded here, and you went either for cheyo or whatever engagement. So whoever is leaving is not being replaced. Whoever is leaving is not being replaced. And that is the crisis we are going into. Actually, it is the basis for which we are saying we are moving a little bit so fast and very dangerously. We need to hold it. And we still need to have that teacher who can teach nursery with a passion that this is where I belong. The issues of how high you are qualified, first of all, the basic for nursery is skills in ECD, early childhood development. Because this is a kid of 4 years who only needed to be taught how to sit on do you call it a pot? How do you call it? How to interact with others, how to eat. I mean, does that require a degree? In our view, it requires skill. So it should be emphasizing the skills somebody should need or should have to be able to effectively handle those children who want to learn how to speak, who want to learn how to handle a pen. You see, how to undress himself or herself, and how to dress up. You do not need a degree for such, you only need a skill. So some of the proposals here, in our view, are outrageous and should be halted. Instead, we need to start with the basics first. Encourage skills development based on needs of levels. Like we have said, early primary levels, nursery levels, they need more of early childhood development skills. Impart that, do rigorous and deliberate programs, open up centers where nursery teachers can come and study and learn and share experiences and so on and so forth. Then the others can vary slowly by slowly.
Okay.
Yes.
Still, when we look at what is happening now, is that, for example, for the teachers in the public service, they are categorized under salary scales, where a diploma holder doesn't get the same as a degree holder. Now, is there any protection for a teacher in a private school over the same, that while we go to school, the law or the policy says that a diploma holder from wherever they
should
are
minimally
have this?
It is not there. It is not there, and that is why in our observation we have been saying that some of these proposals are insensitive to the facts on the ground. I want to speak to you, my brother, that you go to districts like Kumi, you will find a diploma holding teacher working with a government school, and his salary is 150,000 shillings a month. 150,000 shillings. I am only speaking about Kumi to give you a picture of the wider Uganda, but that is practical. It is found in almost every part of Uganda. Of course, outside these prominent schools that we have been mentioning. Yes. Maybe the minimum, somebody at a Kampala parent, I'm sorry to use that, but gladly it's a good example. Perhaps the minimum there is $1 million shilling pay, which is very, very, very okay, and way above what the government is even giving. But somebody in Chisoro with a diploma is perhaps earning 100,000 shillings. And this law is also making a reflection on that. So ours is that we need the basic minimums. We need the foundational basis upon which we then can do the legislation. And that is why we are inviting that the Minister of Education needed to do deliberate consultations to speak to the stakeholders on interest, on priority agenda. So whatever comes out from the engagements as a priority areas should then make the basis for legislation. For example, in the sector, for us as teachers in private teaching sector, our biggest cry is welfare, which is unguaranteed. Somebody does not even have protection over his job, including those in these big schools that we are mentioning about. You earn 2 million shillings in salary, but the director can choose to work the next day on assembly and say, for you today on, don't come back to my school. Those are happening in private schools. We have people who are working very tirelessly but cannot have their salaries paid for a term, for 2 terms, for a year, and when they raise their voices, they are even instead reprimanded. And so many other things. So we need a conversation for the proposers of some of these bills to understand and appreciate our side. Then on the basis of that appreciation, a better law that is reflective of aspirations of all can be put forward. There is a need for a consultation with that person who has invested his millions in a school in Ruuka. Putting up whatever is possible within his means without any government support, and establishing a school, which school is accommodating about 500 learners who are supposed to be a youth of Uganda. That person has peculiar challenges. And before you put forward, because this law goes on to say that should you be found to teach, when you are short of the other qualifications we have already talked about, there is a sanction to you as a teacher of 200 current points or imprisonment of a maximum of 4 years. 200 current point, you multiply it by 20,000 shillings. I think that is close to 4 million shillings in fine, or even imprisonment of 4 years. But they also go forward to say that such a school that is also employing you can be reprimanded at a current point of, I think in rounding off, it is about 10 million shillings in fine or 7 years of imprisonment. So that director in a Kamuli-based rural private school, has he or she been consulted to reflect on the implication of some of these? And even the government itself must consult itself to reflect on the implication of some of these, because we have hundreds of government schools that don't have full staffs. Instead, they recourse to hiring remedial support to come and patch up the gaps. Has the government reflected on that and therefore make a confirmation that going forward now on, government will be able to employ all the necessary teachers in all government schools across the country? And if the government itself cannot, where is the guarantee that that private school in Chiriandongo will be able to do? Those are very hard and disturbing questions that really must put us into a conversation as a nation now, beyond only teachers or only owners of schools, but as a nation we need to engage into that bigger talk to really reflect, because we are speaking about the future of our children, we are speaking about the future of our country.
Thank you so much, and I pray that this outcry really is considered, because you realize that there is a very big threat. One, as we talk about the new curriculum, of course the senior 4, the first batch to sit for this new curriculum is having their briefing on Friday this week, but also that is also a test, and very many power intention, they don't really know. So there is a lot, and then you hear the A level is also coming. I mean, there is a lot. So we really pray that at least there are clear guidelines when it comes, and important guidelines when it comes to the education. Education, one, as education as a profession, but also education as a department, as a ministry, as a unit in our country, because it is one of those most significant departments that the country can survive with. Therefore, we pray that some of these things are really looked into out of a selfless heart and a patriotic heart. Edwin Austin Mukalazi is my name. I've worked with Andrew, I've worked with Didmas and Jacqueline. From the entire team, have a blessed day.
Thank you.
This is Church of Uganda Family TV, enriching lives.